All right, we are live, Common Sense Ohio. Or you can check us out at commonsenseohioshow.com or on all the socials. We are coming at you right from the middle, it turns out, in Ohio, bringing you all the news. Now, why does Ohio matter? Well, because we say so and because it does. We're not just taking on Ohio topics, but all sorts of topics. And those who have followed know the format of the show and generally what we do is we start out with what happened on this day in history. It used to be a World War II solely, but, you know, we sort of ventured out because there's lots of days in history that aren't just World War II. And on this one, it turns out on 12/20/1946. 12/20/1946. It's a Wonderful Life opens up in New York. Jimmy Stewart. Apparently to sort of mixed reviews or not so strong reviews. It was not a big box office smash, and people surmise sort of like, look, it's the end of the war. People were ready to celebrate and have fun and go make babies. And this was a forlorn type of movie, or at least a tearjerker. I watched it again last night, guys, just to get it's been a few years, maybe more than a few. And it really is a great movie.
It is a good movie.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it's like the opposite of Christmas Carol. It's like Christmas Carol in reverse or something. But it phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
And it was, I guess it got legs later on in syndication, if that's the right word, or when people started showing them on TV and everything. But check it out. There's going to be a lot of Christmas type stuff this year, or this show, because it is the last show before Christmas. Right?
I think what also helped amp up that movie was when they colorized it.
Yeah, I watched the colorized version last night.
Yeah, and it's more Christmassy somehow.
It feels more Christmassy.
Right.
But it was filmed for black and white, though.
It was filmed in black and white for black and white, and those
and watch it in that realm. The nuances of black and white.
Yeah, it's a little
because that was an art form.
Yes,
and is an art form.
Yep.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, much later, like Citizen Kane.
Oh my God,
was filmed in black.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's an art form.
Really appreciate the black and white of it. Yeah.
Yep. But that's not the only thing that happened, because in 1957, a mere 11 years later, Elvis Presley drafted in the Army.
Wow.
So, and that brings, we'll get to his Christmas carols later, but
and stationed in Germany.
Germany. So,
as was Johnny Cash. When he was in the Air Force, he was stationed in Germany.
So we'll get to. I'll connect Elvis to Christmas, and obviously, "It's a Wonderful Life" is Christmas. Maybe the most popular Christmas movie of all time. We'll talk about that later too. But that is this day in history, December 20, 1946 and 1957. Two big things happened that are pretty significant.
Yeah.
And Norm actually brought in an M1 Garand because Battle of the Bulge was raging this time in 1944. 44.
And on into January.
And famously, this is what I think we talked about this with a couple weeks ago. But famously, this is like we would cross enemy lines and go have Christmas with the Germans, and really sort of ironic.
Yeah, that with a shared culture, with the Brits, the Germans, the French, Italians, Americans, being Christian countries predominantly, there was a sense of brotherhood that went beyond the battle lines.
Yep.
When you would hear them singing O Tannenbaum over there in the German trenches, right? The Americans would, sing Silent Night.
Yep.
And they could hear each other, but, they're still at war.
Yeah, then they would shoot each other's heads off.
Then they would try to kill each other.
With the M1 Garand, which, as you pointed out, Patton said that really won the war, or that won the battle anyway.
Yeah. The greatest weapon, I think he said, that America had during the war.
Yeah.
Was the semi-automatic M1 Garand.
Yeah. So anyway, there's lots going on in the world, but it is Christmas, so I'm going to keep bringing it back to Christmas themes because I love Christmas. I absolutely love Christmas. I think it's, it's commercialized, but there's also a great meaning still behind it. But anyway, we got news with Norm, and we'll just start there.
Man, I think the biggest thing going on right now has to be this impending shutdown, although it's not a complete shutdown, but what they call a shutdown of the U.S. government, because the budget, the previous budget, only goes through 11/59/59 tonight, midnight, and then there's no funding of the government beyond the Defense Department, the Post Office, and a few other standalone agencies.
Well, what's interesting about this is that we've got this interplay between a man who is a president-elect, but certainly not sworn into office yet.
No.
And we've got two other individuals who don't really hold any position yet, sort of calling shots from the outside. And then you've got the Speaker of the House. So the two other individuals, obviously, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and Trump. And then you've got, the normal politic. But what's most amazing to me is that I have not heard a peep or even seen anything from our president
at all about this.
Where is he?
Well, yeah, we can get to that.
Is he like eating pudding?
Well, there is,
and watching,
or do you,
soap operas?
or do you in his position kind of go, I'm washing my hands of it. It is kind of done. I mean, other than he should be worried about the future of America.
Well, he had Hakeem Jeffries negotiate in some really outrageous stuff in the original budget bill that got rejected, and then the second attempt to pass a bill also failed yesterday. And what's like Steve has presented, what is super interesting is Trump told the House, including the 35 conservatives who did not vote for the bill, he asked them to go ahead and vote for the second version of the bill, and they didn't do that. And they contradict. Well, Elon and Vivek said, don't pass this bill. Even the second bill, they said don't pass the first one. They also said don't pass the second one. But Trump said to pass the second one. So we have a little daylight, a little schism, starting to happen between the budget hawks, people like Chip Roy and the former, well, I guess he resigned, Matt Gaetz, those kinds of people in the House are just saying, this thing's still filled with pork, even though they reduced it to like 125 pages from the original 15.
And what's interesting about this is I sort of like this.
Yeah.
If it is true that the Doge duo, we'll call them the dynamic duo of Doge, are supposed to be independent and not just operatives or an arm of Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Then this is showing up already. I mean,
already.
They're saying, look, we're not beholden to this guy just because he appointed us.
Yeah.
But just because he appointed us, he can also unseat them.
Sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
So we shall see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And I think I like it. I like having an independent viewpoint on some of this stuff, because when you start picking like even the stuff I heard, like some of the stuff that's getting funded, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's like horrible.
I guess because the one thing, and maybe I am going to go into detail, but the unlimited budget or unlimited deficit of what Trump is, what was that?
The raising the debt ceiling is what I think you were talking
Right. That's it.
So Trump wants that done before he takes office. He wants it to be on Biden's record that the debt ceiling was raised. He doesn't want to do that. And Vivek and Elon are saying, no, keep the debt ceiling. We want to eviscerate the federal government. I mean, they want to get rid of whole departments.
Because I guess I'm going to have to be talked down to third grade level. I just don't understand why, as a Republican, you want unlimited debt ceiling.
Exactly.
I don't get that.
Well, Trump. Look, this is what's interesting about this. You bring up a great point. Trump's like. He's not a traditional Republican by any measure.
He's not a conservative.
No. But to the point of him coming in saying he's going to get rid of waste and then, to bring it down to size, but then all of a sudden you're asking for a no.
Right, and he doesn't want that. And you're exactly right, Norm. Politically speaking, he doesn't want that on his watch. He wants it on Biden's watch, so he can say, "I didn't do it." But then he gets to come in with a huge budget to work with, and at the same time, he's got these two budget hawks saying, "No, don't do this."
But isn't that a fool's run? Because whether it's done now or later, it's still attached to him.
It's just stupidity. I mean, it's just trivial stuff.
I guess. I mean,
and
head
look,
scratcher.
It gives him a talking point.
I guess.
And they're funding stuff. They're funding departments. The budget proposes to fund departments. It proposes, I think, a pay increase for Congress, plus an enhancement of their health care benefits.
They're due, of course.
Yeah, they're due. They work hard.
Oh, God,
they work hard.
Yeah.
So it just is. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I predict it'll get resolved here in short order because nobody wants to shut down the government over Christmas.
Go ahead, Steve.
But I mean, on the other hand, I have a love-hate relationship with this stuff. I tend to agree that the budget is overly bloated. Not even tend. I do agree the government is just bloated, massive, awful leviathan that does nothing but just collect and spend money on its own good. At the same time, it has to operate on some level. We've created this beast, and now we have to feed it. You can't just starve it immediately. It's going to have to be dealt with over time. Yeah. And nobody's talking about the real problem, which is the entitlements. Nobody, like Trump has even said, that's all off his list. He's not going to try to cut any of that.
Yeah. So, which is insane.
It's insane. We're bankrupt, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's insane.
any numbers guy who looks at this knows that we cannot sustain it.
Right. And it was Trump and then later Kamala who jumped on the tips are not taxable and all these other like little treats for this and that.
Yeah, why aren't they taxable?
There you go. I mean, it is income.
Yeah, right. Look, if you're going to get rid of an income tax, which Trump has talked about doing,
right?
If you're going to get rid of an income tax, great, but get rid of all of it.
I understand. So one of the most outrageous things, and I know we could go through a bunch, but one of the things in the original bill that was truly outrageous is, guys, that there are several states, California, Illinois, New York, where the state pension systems are upside down.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And essentially they promised more to their state workers because those are run.
And it's all the blue states you're talking about.
All the blue states. They promised them all of this cushy pension stuff. And they somehow wanted Biden to, save them. And now they want in this bill, in the original bill, they were going, now this is a dirty way around it. Rather than salvaging their state pensions, what they were doing in the original bill that got voted down just a day ago was $200 billion of new qualified state workers for Social Security, which they don't pay a dime into.
I saw that too. It's like, wait a minute.
They're exempt from having to contribute. But because the pensions are upside down, it gives Newsom and Pritzker and Hochul and the other blue states a way to say, well, look, state workers, hey, guess what? We qualified you for Social Security now. And it's like, well, wait a minute. The rest of us are paying into this.
Right. Well, and it's just like any other investment situation. You take your lumps when it's good or bad.
Yeah,
I mean, we all have 401ks or
Ohio runs its pension.
Right.
And we have our budget is balanced by Constitution every year. We're not allowed to have.
So we're paying for California's
So
mistakes.
So well-managed states, taxpayers are going to subsidize the out-of-control states.
I saw that piece of it, recognizing them Social Security, but I didn't realize that was the beginning point of the upside downness of it. Okay,
it's because their pension plans are failing.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Anyway, a couple more national things that are kind of sizzling this week. The House panel that looked into the J6 committee came out with its report, and there's a couple interesting things. They said Liz Cheney destroyed documents and tampered with witnesses and other things, but basically that the original J6 committee, of which she was one of the chairpersons, was really one-sided, which we all thought, we all knew. But, if you remember, Kevin McCarthy wasn't even allowed to appoint his Republicans to that committee. So they picked Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, Nancy Pelosi did, and put them on the committee. And they're basically, Republicans in name only. So, but apparently there is a DOJ referral from this committee to prosecute her, or at least have the FBI investigate.
Yeah, I was going to say, Liz, and I don't blame her. She's got an axe to grind.
Oh, she has an axe
for Trump, and if I were in her situation, I would too. I mean, Trump. I don't think Trump ever treated her dad properly, with the respect he should have been as a veteran. But yeah, I can see.
Oh, you're thinking of McCain.
Oh, McCain. I'm sorry, Cheney. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah,
I apologize.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
But still the same scenario, though.
Similar.
Yeah. Okay.
The other big story is the Wall Street Journal came out with a story a couple days ago, a major story. They interviewed 50 Biden White House sources, and they tell a story that from week 1, 4 years ago, when, January, whenever he was sworn in, January the 20th, that Biden was incompetent from the very first.
Yeah, I've been watching this. So,
Wow.
and like his handlers have totally protected him. This to me is the biggest cover up of our time.
Massive.
This, I mean, so think about this.
His staff has been running the presidency.
Yeah,
not him.
this is like movie stuff. I mean, this it's like this is the biggest cover up in modern times, I think, bar none. You've got a president who is fundamentally incompetent to do the job, and I don't care if you supported Biden or didn't support Biden politically, but I think it's going to be very difficult as this stuff comes out to conclude that he was competent.
Yeah.
Because he was not. And it's sad, it's tragic, it's awful, but it certainly wasn't politically incorrect to call it out. But what is incorrect, and I think criminal, is to cover it up.
Yeah.
So we the people, not I, but we the people voted this man into office, and agree or disagree with the veracity of the election or whatever happened, he was voted in as president, or at least inaugurated as president, and he was incompetent, and it was covered up by his people and his handlers, and that's gross.
Yeah.
And look what happened in the world. Like the one story that came out is the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Oh my God.
And there's talk of people saying we need to get to Biden to tell him that this. I'm summarizing this, but the gist of the story was we need to get to Biden to tell him that this is a problem. This is a disaster. We can't just do this. And his handlers wouldn't let him in, or he was just this grumpy old codger and he wasn't having it. Just do it. So they just did it. And Americans lost lives because of this, and the world is not as safe because of this. I mean, this is the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
This is the most powerful position in the world, I think, bar none.
Right.
The most powerful position in the world, and the man is incompetent, and they're not telling us. It's like, and not only that, when we see it here, not only in this studio, but when everybody in the world sees it and calls it out, like this guy's like doddering around a stage and doesn't know how to get off the stage. It's like, come on, people, this is obvious. Yeah. Oh, you're just being ageist, or you're just discouraged, you're just this, or you're just that. It's like it was not only covered up, it was shouted down.
Mm-hmm. Well, the details are really going to start coming out and have, like, for example, to your point about the Afghanistan thing, his Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, almost never met in the 4 years with the president. I mean, the guy in charge of the military never, rarely, if
he was doing
ever.
Nothing. It's like, it really is gross. It really is gross.
It's out of hand.
I want to go back real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I meant to bring this stuff up. We were talking about the budget bill. So I'm just going to highlight the things that Elon and Vivek don't like, and then we'll move on. I know we've covered this. I'm not going to beat the horse too much, but they don't like the pay raises for lawmakers, which was a 4% pay raise. It was proposed $6,600 extra per year on top of their $174,000 existing salary. Hasn't been increased since 2009. So to your point, Brett, maybe they do. No, they don't.
No. I'm being sarcastic.
Exempting members from Obamacare. Interesting. That includes a provision stipulating that members of Congress do not have to participate in the healthcare system that they wrote into law under the Affordable Care Act. Dig into that. Sort of interesting stuff. Disaster relief. So there's been a lot of hurricanes, et cetera. So they wanted to fund that. The rebuilding of Maryland's Francis Scott Key Bridge. How that's a federal project, I'm not quite sure, but
because that Chinese ship sailed into it.
Yeah, no, I got it. But so look, Maryland's not going to pay for it himself. You can sort of get your head around that. There'd be some federal funding to
where the
protect
waters
that,
are. How
about suing the boat owners? That's what Janet. Janet Yellen said. The head of the Fed. She said, "Hey man, why aren't we going after the people who caused it?"
Right.
Yeah. Year-round higher levels of ethanol sales. So the corn folks like that. Reauthorization of the State Department agency Republicans accused of speech suppression. So there's an agency that was created, I think, the Global Engagement Center, where that was what was tapped to sort of report on what the social media platforms were doing and not doing. And it's getting funded under this bill.
Okay.
And this is what everybody on our side anyway has been, not even just our side. I think people are railing against this. The government getting involved in what we're doing on our platforms is a little troubling to me anyway.
It is troubling, right.
And then there's a bunch of other handouts, farm subsidies, et cetera. So
isn't it nice how they kind of refer to, we're going to help the farmers. It's ConAgra, for God's sakes. These are mega farms that they're helping.
Yeah, this is not mom and pop on the corner in Sunbury, Ohio when I was growing up in high school. It's
on
not what's going on.
50 acres growing potatoes.
This is subsidized farming.
Right. Well, and we proved that with the state of Ohio grants going to the butchers. It's mostly larger companies.
Yeah.
And I know that's the kind of the way our world has become. I mean, now we're starting to see. I noticed in my neck of the woods where I grew up, a couple of smaller pharmacies are closing because they can't compete against the CVS's in the world.
No way. Right.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And understand, like when there's government funding like this, when you say, all right, it's funded here, really what they're funding, and I think this is where Elon and Vivek are going to come out, really what they're funding is the government agency created that interprets how the money gets doled out. So it's like you have all this money. So say I'm giving $10 billion to something. That first goes to this huge office building in somewhere.
Yeah.
Where it's
Maryland or Delaware
where
or
it's
something.
empty because
Virginia.
everybody's working at home anyway.
Right.
And it has to fund all those salaries, all those resources, and then they get to decide where to give the money. And imagine that decision. Like, who's making those decisions on who gets the money? Because it's not spelled out.
And we
detail.
never hear the net.
No, you never hear the net.
So of the $10 billion, how many millions are actually being dispersed?
Right. It's it's like the well, look, I used to run it. I've been involved in several charities, and whenever I would go solicit money and ask people to help donate and fund our charity, one was called the Parker Lee Foundation. Great job out there, guys. They're still doing great work. The first question or the first thing I always told people, even before I asked them to buy a lottery ticket or a raffle ticket or come to an event or just donate, I always told them, nobody on the board gets paid.
Yeah, right up
Nobody.
Front. Yeah.
The expenses on Parker Lee are almost zero because everything is done at the grassroots. Everything is done locally with people who care about the local the local situation.
Right.
And we used to work with a group called Directions for Youth here, and we would largely fund their projects. But the notion is like, all right, so we get to see where the money's going, how it's getting doled out, how it's getting used, dictated, and then there's accountability on the other side too. So it's like the government taking over charity basically is the antithesis of that.
It's been a disaster.
We have to. It's just an employment opportunity for a bunch of stooges making $150 grand a year working from home.
Well, it's like the Department.
I didn't mean to call you stooges. I apologize.
But it's like the Department of Education or Transportation or any of these edifices that they've built in D.C. where they collect 50 states worth of money, they amalgamate it in D.C., and then they redistribute it in their little commie way of, like in this bill, there was funding for RFK Stadium, for example, in D.C., for the Washington, whatever they call themselves.
Because you, the taxpayer, Norm, care about that.
Yeah. So some little old lady living in Des Moines, right, who barely can afford to
when
pay.
They should be giving money to Cleveland to keep them in, to keep
right. Come on, the priorities here.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
right. Or
but it's insane. It's insane. Like, why should some little old lady in Des Moines be subsidizing a bus ride on the subway in D.C.? That's crazy to me.
So Vivek so here's what back to this point is like you're going to have these two maybe multiple competing interests in this, which I love. I love it when our government doesn't agree. It's awesome.
Shut it down. I'm all for it.
It's interesting how that's shining. It's showcasing that almost immediately, which is good for me. It's like, okay, I'm seeing some good of this.
Right. Yeah. Because debate isn't agreement. By definition.
Yeah. And this is survivable. When Gingrich and Clinton had their standoff, it went over 30 days. The government was shut down. The federal workers got reimbursed after they reopened.
So let me say this.
It's not the end of the world.
Let me say this. No. I care about the government workers and their money and their budgets and their homes and making their payments. So I'm not callous to that. I am not. And I hope it doesn't have to happen. What I would hope instead is this nonsense. So everybody says, well, these people who are shutting down the government don't care about those workers. And to some extent, they're treated like pawns a little bit. But on the other hand, the focus should be like, why is this nonsense in a federal budget?
Right.
Yes.
Like why? Like we shouldn't have to get to this point where the only leverage that people have is to shut down the federal government.
Right.
When we're paying for crap that the federal government shouldn't be paying for.
And this should not be coming up to the 11th hour as well.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Every freaking time.
All Congress does anymore is they debate all year long about spending, and then they come up with
down the road.
Exactly. Giant amalgamation of nonsense.
This continuing resolution is not even passing the budget. It's just to delay it till
March or something, maybe.
March.
Yeah.
Do your jobs, folks. Do your jobs.
Yes.
I will say one thing, since you brought up federal workers and the Doge duo. they came out with a stat, this is a couple weeks ago, but it is incredible, that only 6% of federal workers, if you take out the military, because they're every day, but only 6% of the remaining federal employees show up more than 1 day a week.
Isn't that insane?
1 day a week. The other 94% don't even show up more than 1 day a week.
So let me tell you a story.
You got to be crapping.
There's somebody, I'm not going to mention names, but there's somebody who was an attorney that worked in the state of Ohio somewhere, somehow, doing something.
Yeah.
I overheard a conversation, and this individual was talking to somebody else about a device. And the device involved a mouse pad.
Oh, the mouse jiggler thing.
And I was like,
you mentioned that once.
So I come back and I look it up.
That's crazy.
I look it up, and it's this device. It's a mouse pad that tricks your mouse into thinking it's doing something, or it tricks your PC thinking your mouse is moving as if you're working from home.
So you have nanny software that the government's running on your PC.
And this is a workaround.
Oh, Jack is really working hard today.
Must be moving his mouse a lot today, folks. And really what's going on is Jack is watching It's a Wonderful Life and catching up on his Amazon Christmas shopping, right?
Of course he
and
is.
Getting a nice snooze.
On his other PC.
On his other PC.
Funny as it may be, we are paying the salaries of this crap.
Yeah.
Now, in my office, if I had somebody work from home, and I found out that they were taking naps and I'm paying for the hours, you're fired.
Sure.
You're effing fired. You're fired yesterday. You're fired.
Right, of course.
I don't like work from home. Some people do great at home. Some people don't do great at home. But so if you're going to have a policy, then everybody works at the office because it's like if you're not sure what's going on at home, but you can be sure what's going on in the office, that's what it is. Look, work sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, or maybe it doesn't. You know, once you get used to it and once you enjoy it, the office camaraderie of it, it sucks. And this is another point I'm going to make. I said I would keep coming back to Christmas. And maybe it's something I like, is that we have lost some of this camaraderie in the workplace because of COVID.
I agree.
Everybody's gone home.
Sure.
And I used to have a full office of people, and I had weekly meetings, and we talked to people, and you know, it was I knew what's going on in your life, and we had fun. I bought lunch for everybody on Fridays, and we would catch up on
kind of turned into a
is.
second family almost.
And it was my second family,
almost.
Yesterday, I started again. Well, not again, but I did our office Christmas lunch where I bought pizzas for everybody, and we brought the whole building into the conference room, and
nice.
We all just hung out. And you know what? It was a little bit weird at first because we don't see each other that much anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about some of the people in the other areas of the building, but we don't see each other that often. But within about 20 minutes, I looked around and it was so loud in the conference room that I had trouble hearing the own conversation I was having with somebody I don't usually talk to.
Yeah.
And it was all because of the holiday get-together. And look, it's not just that. It's just that we need more of this, not less.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And it dawned on me when I was reading these headlines about Elon saying people are coming back to work, like it or not, or you're getting fired. It's like, well, there's something to that because now, like, think about this at a micro level. If I'm working with you, Brett, and we do this, we work weekly in the studio, not in this show, and not only on this show, but other shows. And if we didn't meet weekly, we wouldn't get anything done. Yeah. And and not only that, like I care about what's going on in your life. And I only care about what's going on in your life because I know what's going on in your life because we have these communications. And then take that to the next level or a different direction where I can depend on you to get stuff done and you can depend on me to get stuff done because we have this implicit accountability because we interact regularly in person.
Right. I can't look him in the eye and tell him I got something done and I didn't. Because I'm going to see him in person. Yeah, right. So I have accountability.
I can't turn my camera off.
I look at Brett and go, Brett, did you do that paper that you promised you would do? He can't bullshit me.
He can't bullshit me. Or look, I'm an inveterate procrastinator. I have ADHD, folks. And I admit it. So I struggle and I do my best. But one of the things that keeps me on track is accountability.
Big time. And
not just accountability with court deadlines, but accountability with my people. I have a law clerk upstairs, Troy. Check us out on lawyertalkpodcast.com, by the way. He does it with me. Great podcast on what they don't teach you in law school. But I've got Troy working on projects. And if I'm going to have him work on a project, and I know he's coming in on Tuesday, I have to have my part to him. Mm-hmm. And then he has to have his part to me. Yeah. There's mutual accountability. Yeah. And I will tell you this, if he's not in the office, because he's a law student, so he can't always be there. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Sure.
I do not have that accountability with him or from him.
Well, take the two Doge guys, right? Yeah. So they're tech, giants, And they both have run companies and demanded post-COVID their employees come in.
It matters.
So Elon knows a bullshit email is not the same as in-person accountability.
And I don't think Elon's the type of guy that's getting fooled by the mouse pad.
No. Because
Elon's going to figure that one out.
He probably created the software to know how it works, and then
he probably did.
Yeah.
So, but it's classic governmental crap. You know, it's like, oh, we're gonna work from home, but we got accountability because we can check and see if their mouse is moving. And you know, look, we laugh about it, and we sort of have some feigned outrage about it. But look, to those of you doing that crap, it's a crime.
Yeah,
it's criminal.
Well, and
you're stealing money from the government.
It's obviously widespread that they don't feel they need to come into the office. 94% of them are not coming in.
Well, and they
more
hate
than
it, right?
one day a week.
And
they're making 200, 300,000.
Not to get personal, but there's a reason why people like to work from home, because it's easier.
You can wear your pajamas.
You can do whatever. You don't have to do as much.
Right.
And again, to those of you who excel at it, my wife is one. She can sit at home and she cranks out more. In fact, I yell at her. It's like, look, you're working from home. You're only supposed to give them 8 hours. You're giving them 15. You know, there are those people that excel in that environment.
Right. And no distractions. They can hole up and they're done.
That's what she says.
I know.
I can just get my stuff done.
Totally agree with that.
But not everybody can do it. In fact, I think most people don't. So if you're going to have a normal, it is not home.
Well, they're thinking, gosh, why do I need daycare? Why should I pay for that now? If I'm going to be home 5 days a week, why don't I just keep the kids?
Having raised 2 kids.
Oh, come on.
I can't do work at home.
Right. Can you imagine?
I know.
You're talking to the lady at the Department of Agriculture. She picks up the phone. You hear 2 kids screaming.
I know. Yeah. No, that's no.
All right, that's my rant.
Yeah. Well, DeWine signed 20 bills yesterday, and he has more on his desk today.
Old man cramp up on the pen?
He's the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, for those in other states. And amongst the bills he signed, the ones he did sign, are some pretty interesting ones. House Bill 173 requires real pricing for medical procedures, not estimates. So truth and labeling for the customers. The feral pig thing did get signed. So you don't need a license, and there is no season to kill boars and
I thought that was already the case. It's open. It's like coyotes. It's open season.
I guess they wanted to clarify it. But you do if you do kill a boar or a wild pig, the proviso in the law now says you have to advise ODNR, the Department of Natural Resources, within 24 hours.
Now, look, there is a
I done killed a pig.
Like I'll give you some boots on the ground example of this. I was hunting. I had some property. My family used to have property down in Jackson, and one of the neighbors had a farm there, and he was telling me the story how ODNR came down. What they would do is they would literally create pens, and the wild boars would go into these pens and get sort of trapped, and then come down and kill them en masse. I mean, it's like this has been and that's going back 5-6 years.
Wow.
This is it's been a problem because these they are they're destructive,
sure, and kind of aggressive,
and they can be very aggressive. And you see these. Look, I like to hunt, and you see these. You pay for hunts to go shooting them out of helicopters, or people shoot them with handguns.
Yeah.
I mean,
in Texas, that's a thing.
It becomes quite sporting.
I can't imagine hitting them on the road. I mean, that's like hitting a deer.
Yeah,
they're full grown.
Holy cow!
Yeah. They hunt them at night a lot of times. But anyway,
okay.
Interesting bill. House Bill 531 got signed. This was a sex extortion bill, raising sexual extortion. Like a girl sends you, like you're a teenager or whatever, a girl sends you a naked picture of herself, and then you start to try to extract, I'm going to publish this on a school, Facebook page unless you do X, Y, Z. So that makes it a felony, this new law. And it also provides a 10-year window to look back if the victim harms him or herself or commits suicide.
Wow.
Yeah, the second part of that's going to be troubling. But
to raise the penalty, in other words, if the victim, right.
There's going to be a huge, it's going to be vague and overbroad, and that'll be challenged.
That'll be challenged.
But look, here's my problem with this. As I have told my kids, and I've gone to lecture other kids, and I'm sure the schools are doing their part. But fundamentally, why are kids sending naked pics of themselves?
Honestly.
And I'm saying kids now, and so I guess this is targeted towards adults. I should probably shift. It's like if you're an adult and you're sending naked pics of yourself to somebody else, it's like what do you think is going to happen there?
Like that New York congressman. Remember him? And then he had to resign.
Well,
what was his
Bezos. One of my favorite stories is Bezos famously, he was getting blackmailed. Some woman said, if you don't give me money, I'm going to expose your dick pic.
Wow.
And what did he do? He published it.
Oh.
Right away.
Hey.
It's like, that's my kind of guy right there. It's like, you know what? You're gonna let's just do it. Let's just get it done.
And if you got the junk that's looking good,
like good or bad or ugly, I'm just going to show it. Yeah. But look, here's the thing: if you're an adult, don't send pictures. Don't do it.
That's so weird.
Husbands,
so weird.
Wives send them to husbands, and husbands, I don't know if they send them back to wives, and maybe that's a little bit different. I don't know. But if you're online dating, or if you're doing some of this stuff, and you're sending it to a boyfriend or somebody you're dating, or you're just doing it, it's like there's a breakdown somewhere in this. There really is.
Yeah,
right.
There really is. There's some sort of problem here, and it's not. I'm not judging, I guess. I'm just saying what's going on. I'm asking what's going on because I can tell you right now there are no naked pictures of me digitally anywhere in the world.
No.
Maybe newborn. Doubt it.
Good point.
Maybe. But that's newborn.
But that's going to be on like a little thing with a grainy picture.
Right, grainy picture. Yeah, exactly. But that's a head scratcher in regards to how does this even begin?
Generationally, it's like I tell my sons, do not send pictures of your junk over the internet. It's just not going to be good for you. And I should also say as a warning, if you are a teenager, probably not listening to the show anyway, but if you're underage or if your kid is underage, be vigilant about this because if your son is getting pictures of his high school girlfriend and she's underage and that starts getting around, I've represented dozens of folks who get in that kind of jam. And it's
you need to have a talk with your kids, big time.
Yeah, do it. And people do, and schools do, because I've been part of some of those programs. But be careful.
Well, kids think like if it's on Instagram, like it disappears.
Snapchat, right?
Or Snapchat,
and it does to some extent.
Yeah. Another bill that got passed and signed is the Dolly Parton license plate bill. Have you guys heard of this?
I have not.
No.
So for $25,
Dolly.
Dolly Parton has something in Ohio, and I think in probably almost every state, called the Imagination Library.
Oh yeah,
of Ohio, and which she funds out of her. But this will. $25 to upgrade your plate to the Dolly Parton plate. The entire $25 goes to that charity.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, and it's run by the state of Ohio. She just started it. But at any rate, I've seen the plate. It's pretty cool looking.
Is it? Okay.
And I'm told the legislature worked 9 to 5 to pass it.
God.
Sorry.
I'm sure.
Senate Bill 100. This is interesting. It forbids putting tracking devices on another person's property. And it also strangely included this thing, which Steve will, I'm sure, have comments about, that it authorizes taking oral fluids on OVI cases now. Like you can compel oral fluids. And I don't know if that's about marijuana or why, Steve? Would you want to?
I don't know. I'm sure it has something to do with testing for drugs or marijuana and or alcohol. Maybe I should know this because I do this every day.
Well, it just got signed.
Well, I'm usually on top of this, but either way, this is going to be. I think the bigger picture is: can they do that? Is this a constitutional law? The answer is probably yes, because we have something across the country called implied consent, where driving, believe it or not, folks, driving a car is not a right; it is a privilege, and the government gives us that privilege. Now, look. Don't think it should be a right because it's not in the Bill of Rights. It's nowhere else. You don't have a right to drive. You have to. The government can regulate your right or your restrictions on driving, and this is one of them. So if you're driving along, and this is why police officers can ask you to take a chemical test. They can ask you to take a blood, breath, or urine test, and now an oral swab apparently. So they
or spit
in
a cup.
Spit in a cup. So they can ask you to do that stuff. And now, if you say no, it's not like they're going to cut your head off. There's a consequence, and typically in Ohio and most states, the consequence is an immediate license suspension, so you can't drive. There's another consequence too. If you do take the test and it's above the legal limit or it registers above the limit, there's another suspension.
Yeah,
so sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Check out Lawyer Talk OVI 360. DUI 360 if you want to get the
nuances.
That's
a whole thing, man.
Yeah,
you could do a semester on OVI.
I do a whole podcast on it. But look, the point is most people don't understand that driving is a is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
The government can regulate it, like it or not. That's just how it is.
Yeah, you have a constitutional right of freedom of movement, but not the means of the movement.
The Supreme Court has said there's a right to travel interstate and go various places.
Yeah.
And
so put on a backpack and start walking.
Get your pedal, get your bicycle out.
Yeah, get your bicycle out.
One thing that DeWine will have to examine today, and the LGT, the alphabet lobby is against this bill, is House Bill 8. He has not signed it unless, he's done it during the show here. And it requires several things. So there's there's different subject matters in this same bill. One is schools have to, if the bill passes, will have to disclose to parents any kind of gender disruption, dysphoria, incidents, counseling. That will have to now be disgorged and disclosed affirmatively to the parents of that student. That's one thing. The other thing it does, completely off the chart here, is it requires sex education disclosure before it's taught. So in other words, parents will be getting a syllabus if the school is going to teach sex education about what's included in that lesson or, series of lessons. And then number 3, again, a completely different subject. It is going to require school districts to schedule release time for religious instruction not at taxpayer cost, but certainly it will be disrupting the school day. To have children whose parents check a box and say, I want little Johnny to go on the Christian school bus and go down to the church and get some instruction and then hauled back to the school. So it was an optional thing. Now it's compulsory for every school district to allow that. So
it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I think this is going to blow up.
I wouldn't doubt
it's going to blow up.
He may veto this.
There's a lot of variable here.
Too many variables. If you think about it. So let's say
he may veto it.
Let's say all of it passes. Yeah. And LifeWise, who is basically the instigator of this when it comes down to it, starts teaching sex ed. Mm-hmm. So they're not obligated to show their parents that they're talking about sex ed while they're out and about. I think it's actually, for me, those kids are going out and I don't know if it's 2 hours a day, whatever it might be. I think they're going to be behind.
Yeah.
Because if they leave during chemistry and algebra, chemistry and calculus.
Look,
how are they going to catch up?
There are better ways to do this. Create a voucher do something like send your kid to private school.
Exactly.
There are better ways to do this, and it's astounding on several levels to me.
Too many subjects in one bill.
So why? On the one hand, it seems implicitly obvious to me that if your kid is displaying, I'll say, gender issues at school, that the parents should know about it. Look, the parents raise the kids, not the school. So that seems obvious to me. But then why does it have to be combined with all this other nonsense?
I agree.
Right.
Right. And I don't even think you should have to have the first bill. But to the extent that that's a problem now, I guess what's at least mandated. But here's the thing.
I think, Steve, they structured this to force DeWine to
veto.
Sign.
Of course they
force
did.
him to sign it, force him to veto it one way or another.
You bet.
But, here's the other problem, is that making it mandated doesn't make it so. And it typically and very often will drive it underground. So, there's this is a government. Typically, the left falls victim to this all the time. They try to legislate human nature, and you can't do that.
You can't do that. Right.
So if it's their nature, if you're an ideological believer that kids should be able to choose their own gender at 5 years old or 6 years old or school age or at elementary age, teachers are going to do it one way or another, whether they're not allowed to or not. And then you're just going to have people getting fired. So it's like you can't change the culture by making laws.
No, that's right.
You can't do that. And that's what the leftists try to do for years. And the other side's doing it here. So you can't change the culture by making law.
And the notification of sexuality content in K through 12 classrooms. Okay, so mythology's out.
Yeah, so
you can't teach the Bible.
You have to disclose all this.
You're starting to think like a lawyer.
So somebody's going to have to write up a term paper for the parents.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this. You're starting to think like a lawyer here. You're like, all right, so what does that mean?
Right.
So we're going to define sexually oriented material or sexual content. Right. Now, what does that mean? What's included in that?
And then so therefore, LifeWise is not under that.
Well, Greek,
but it's during
to your
school day.
point, Greek gods I'm trying to think. Was it Olympus or no? That's a place. Poseidon. He raped a female god. It's part of the pantheon, right? It's part of history.
Mythology was one of my favorite classes in high school. I loved mythology.
It's really neat stuff.
Right? It is.
I would just say if you're going to teach ancient Greek religion, it'd be okay to teach, that there is a Jewish religion, there is a Catholic and a Christian religion.
Well, this has been the debate for years.
Yeah.
I used to have this debate with a close friend.
Without making it like you kids have to be a Christian.
That's right.
You can teach about
understanding international religions.
What's Hinduism?
Christianity has been so much under attack that even including it in the list of world religions that are taught
is crazy. People
fight that tooth and nail.
Tooth and nail.
And you just wonder what is so wrong with Christianity. We're going to talk more about it at the end. But what is so wrong with it?
Right.
That you can't even teach it as a possible world religion, and at the same time you're teaching Islam,
right,
in a very, very direct sort of way.
Sure. Or Taoism or Hinduism. Yeah. It's like, guys, it is a religion.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah.
Happens to be the right one.
Yeah. At least the chosen one that we've gone with, Yeah.
Right.
But.
So, Steve, you had something turning to the justice, police,
and
blotter.
justice for all.
Yeah. So you had something on the murder of that United Healthcare executive by this Mangione dirtball. Why don't you discuss that a little bit? Because you had some ideas on that.
There's been a lot of, I know there's some, he's been extradited and that's pretty simple stuff. I mean, there's some procedural boxes that have to be checked, but look, if you think you're going to fight extradition, you're not.
He finally waived it, I think.
And usually, this isn't the point I was going to make, but I'll make it anyway. I get calls all the time. Should my loved one waive extradition or fight extradition? I think there's this notion that you should fight. You should not. You should not, because the only issue is, typically speaking, do they have the right guy? And you're going to end up sitting around, in this case in Pennsylvania, in some local lockup for weeks fighting whether they've got the right guy or not. And you're going to get nowhere. You can't win because you are the guy that they want. And it doesn't mean you did it, but you're the guy they've identified as doing it. And two, you're just going to sit locally longer. It's not going to do anything. But beyond extradition, the questions I'm getting, and we did a breakdown on this on the other side in the lawyer talk. New York has the indictment has come down, and New York has charged this guy with basically 2 counts of murder and a string of gun-related charges. And the murder cases are murder of the first degree and murder in the second degree. And here's where definitions matter, because Ohio's version of murder doesn't necessarily match up with New York's version of murder or California's or Indiana's or Pennsylvania's or any other state. They might have similarities, and they might have, but the terminology doesn't match up. And this is where people get confused, because people say murder in the second degree, it's not as severe. Well, maybe it's not, but murder in the first degree in New York, I just perused their New York law this morning. It's not the same as Ohio. So Ohio has a first-degree aggravated murder charge that basically says if I kill somebody on purpose, then that's murder. If I purposely killing somebody is murder in the first degree. That's a first-degree murder. Now, there's lower versions of murder like manslaughter, reckless homicide, negligent homicide. All of that exists under Ohio law, and it has to do with what the intent was of the person committing the murder. New York's first-degree murder, it seems it requires something that Ohio doesn't necessarily. Now, Ohio has similar laws that do other things, but in New York, to get a first-degree murder, you got to kill like a first responder, or kill a police officer, or kill a politician or government actor, or you kill somebody in order to gain an advantage in your criminal case, kill a witness, things like that. And then there's another one that New York has chosen here, and that is murder as a result of terrorism. So you're killing somebody as a terrorist act. And we dug into this the other day where it's like, what the heck's a terrorist act? And well, it turns out in New York, a terrorist act is you are committing a crime in order to influence a government to do something or not do something, sort of like extorting a government. So that may apply here, maybe, if you believe the manifesto that this kid was doing this because of healthcare and maybe trying to modify healthcare. But the second degree murder is he purposely killed somebody.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, it seems to me, and I don't know what the evidence is against this kid other than he seems to match the guy doing it on video.
Well, they found the weapon in his backpack.
And they find the weapon or a weapon in his backpack. I don't know if ballistics has matched that up yet. Sooner or later, it probably will if it is.
Yeah.
So they'll just stack up the evidence. I don't know if the kid made any statements beyond his manifesto, which is pretty damning. I don't know if the kid confessed, say I did it to the police upon arrest. If the ballistics, the gun matches the bullets that shot from the gun are going to match the same bullets that they found in the guy, and then they can match him up, overlay him on the video. Sounds like he's getting convicted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They found DNA, I guess, on his coffee cup, that he threw away at the Starbucks. So now they can match up the picture of him in the Starbucks, via DNA with the backpack in which they found the gun at McDonald's. So the chain.
Yeah. So one of the first elements of any crime is identity. You got to prove that the guy you're accusing is doing it. Sometimes that's easy. Sometimes it's not so easy.
Not so easy. This leads me a little bit. I just, it's kind of a grim thing to talk about, but there seems to be a spate of young women, even girls like this young 15-year-old in Madison that went into her Christian school, having written a manifesto, I guess that's a thing, and sent it to her online boyfriend who has published it. You can read the thing. I got about 3/4 of the way through reading this Madison shooter. She killed a teacher and a student with a 9mm handgun.
It's awful.
And
turned it on herself then too, right?
Yes, and then she committed suicide. And I read this. I could only get through about 3/4 of it. It was filled with such nihilism and such hatred of other people. And she said, killing is a good thing. I'm doing a good thing. I'm doing a moral thing by eliminating lives, because these lives, just like my life, is valueless. These other lives have no value either. And it was pages and pages of this, Brett, and I couldn't read it anymore.
Well, where's this coming from?
Well, she talked about her family a lot in this. And she hated her family. Evidently, they were ostracized from each other, and
it was a divorce of some sort. Yeah, I mean, look,
and you knew where that was going to go.
Yeah,
that path, the path. It typically, and not to blame the parents, but it typically is something in their personal life.
Well, she said she hated her father. Wow. He's awful. He's this. He's that, and he's stupid, which maybe portends to how she got the gun from him.
Yeah.
If she did.
Wow. But, so her manifesto is basically a suicide note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically.
And she had never met her boyfriend. This boyfriend was an online boyfriend, and she sent him the manifesto the morning of. And
so again, this sort of goes back to a theme that we keep coming back to. One is, look, we're getting close to Christmas, so there is this Christian notion that every life has a meaning, like everything, like we are all individually unique and important in the eyes of God. It's like we all have our place, no matter what your talents are, where you are, and that
we're salvageable.
And we're salvageable, right?
Like
there is redemption available.
If you're contrite, Christianity teaches that you can save your soul right up to the moment of death.
And you're not defined by all the horrible things you've thought about, done, and whatever. You're just human, right? Yeah. It's sort of an interesting, you can overcome that. But beyond that, there's this idea of this local communal interaction. I mean, this girl had no interaction with her boyfriend. It's all done online. It's like working from home. It's like you lose this accountability with other people in your life.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm empathetic to this because I don't. That's where it seems like that's where society is going. And maybe there'll be a backlash.
I mean, she was a child. She's 15.
She's 15.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And then you got this idea of a divorce with ostracized parents who are probably slinging arrows at each other. It's like, you can't blame any one of those things. It's probably more like all these things. Yeah. Plus, who knows? Maybe she's just got some congenital mental health issue. Who knows? Sure. But
that could be.
Who knows? But it's like if we're not, I think the problem is the media, the political environment is not going to permit a genuine analysis of this.
Yeah.
Because it would be very politically incorrect to say divorce causes this.
Yeah.
Right now. Because people want to say, well, we're getting divorced. Like, there's a justification of divorce that it's not that big a deal.
Right.
And, to some extent, maybe that's true, but to some extent, maybe that's not so true. Or maybe it's like online activity. Nobody wants to really dig into that. Or maybe it's the fact that we have eliminated any sort of moral compass premised upon Western values from our raising of kids. It's like all these things are probably interesting enough to study together and on their own, but we won't do it.
Well, I've said several
one side,
times.
we'll just come up with like this broad whitewash of the problem, like I just did, and say, well, it's one of these things.
Well, I mean, I've brought this topic up several times. I think young women, young girls, are in a terrible situation in our society. We've like if I heard this former porn star on Laura Ingram's show last night. And she talked about, and now she's born again, and she has turned her life around. And she has talked about how pornography, like children are watching pornography at a rate that is off the scale, and that it has become the way that boys think sex should be.
Yep.
And it involves like choking, spitting, all this violence during the act of sex, and that girls, like when they're subjected to this by boys, they don't want to have anything to do with boys again. Like they're done with it.
Right.
And it's causing...
And then girls, I think, who are watching this, or maybe they get accustomed to stuff like that, and they don't understand why they don't like it, but they do it anyway. And I mean, think what that caused, like the cognitive dissonance.
Right, I wasn't exposed
because
to
look,
anything.
sex isn't like that.
Yeah, I mean,
at least not in the mainstream.
I mean, on our baseball team, somebody would bring a dirty Playboy, right?
Norm.
Yeah, in her backpack, and we'd all gather around. Be 15 guys looking at. Oh my God, that's what that looks like. But you're not going home and having unlimited hours on your computer.
And not only that,
watching
of
the act.
Almost anything you can possibly conceive as a human being.
That's
with
right.
all your deplorable tendencies, right?
I beg parents, put the PC, the laptops, and the phones in a common room where you are at.
Yeah,
it's the only way to control.
It is such a problem.
It's insidious.
Yeah. Well, look, it's let's spend some time here talking about things usually we call this wonderfully outrageous or something, but
with the outrage and the wonderful.
I think we're going to talk about Christmas a little bit. So we've got I love to kick around the idea of the best Christmas movies, the best Christmas songs, the best whatever, but it is that time of year where one of my favorite, I'll just go first because one of my favorite ever things that are aired in the media regarding Christmas is the Charlie Brown's Christmas.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Special.
Yeah.
And I think one year I actually played it because at the very end, you have basically Linus.
You did play it.
Yeah. Linus standing up and reading from Luke. Right, Luke chapter 2 verses 8 through 14
on broadcast television.
And it gives me chills every time I watch it. It is incredible. And I did a little digging here to figure out like what was really going on.
Yeah.
And here's what I learned. It's like when it was first produced, when they were kicking it around, Charles Schultz, the creator of the Peanuts, had a specific but an important directive, and that the program be something. About something. Namely, he insisted it be about the true spirit of Christmas. Otherwise, he said, why bother? Now, this got a lot of backlash because once it was created and they realized there's this huge biblical reference back in 1965, right? It's like you got the powers that be. Like already the push,
right?
That whole push against Christianity was there. And he insisted, and then they finally were like, look, when it was finished, it was like, well, what are we going to do? We've already to advertise it. We have to play it. And it turns out it's one of the most ubiquitous. Everybody has seen it. I watched as a kid every single year.
If you go on Prime or Netflix, Steve, it's right there at the top. Under the most watched, it still is one of the most watched programs.
Yep.
To your point.
And what's interesting is that every time I watched that, even as a kid, and I was not raised evangelically, not how I was raised, but it always moved me in some way. Like even my earliest memory of that, it was very, very impactful.
Yeah.
Like everybody would stop and everybody would be quiet and you would listen to what Linus was saying.
Yeah.
And what he was saying, what he was reading is the Gospels.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just such a powerful moment. I remember as a child. And I maybe not appreciated exactly what was going on, but it was a significant. And like this is the meaning of Christmas. It isn't just get toys. It isn't
because
just
there was all
give
the other all the other secular programs. You had Burl Ives, Frosty the Snowman.
All this,
which
is great. It's
Lon Chaney doing the Grinch.
Yep.
You had major stars doing secular versions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed and all that stuff. But only that show was about the birth of Jesus. I mean, that was the point.
The real meaning of Christmas. And lo, he says, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore and afraid. And the angel said unto them, fear not, for behold, I bring you good things of great joy, which shall be to all people. You know, it's like he keeps going. It's really incredible.
In a kid's voice.
In a kid's voice.
Truly a kid's voice. It's not a made-up kid's voice. It's a kid.
Laugh line. It's not
in
a
the
joke.
context of the cartoon, which has been like sort of ridicule Charlie Brown and the stupid Christmas tree that nobody liked, and he's such a klutz and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he just, you got Linus sort of walking up.
Right.
He goes, I'll tell you the true meaning of Christmas, or what's Christmas all about?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what Christmas is all
It's
about.
perspective.
It's like
all the other problems aren't big problems.
The child cartoon mic drop in 1965. Right.
Well,
the gospel.
Well said. Yeah. I don't have anything more wonderful than that.
Yeah.
I do have one outrage. And this is off the hook. And you've heard me talk about the PPP program. Apparently, Ohio's Little Wayne, an accounting sheet has been made public of what he spent his $6.5 million of PPP on. $2 million of it went to a debt he owed his agent, like $2.5 million of the $6.5. He just settled a debt with his agent. And then the rest of it was buying jewelry and airplane rides to parties. I mean, so find that online. And this is just one guy. I mean, the Pelosi family got $28 million under PPP, various programs. And, to save they had a hotel, a French theme hotel in California, restaurants, things that they were partners in. That curiously enough, if you add it all up, which the Wall Street Journal has done, amount to $28 million. And she knew all the little programs. She knew all the little strange, bailout funds for her investments to apply for.
Well, I've heard there's funds now that track the congressional investments. They're killing it.
Yes. Paul Pelosi has a 65% return rate.
Right.
Good
Genius.
God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My outrage, I think we talked about, it already, House Bill 8 for Ohio. Yeah. And I guess another outrage, but I'll get some wonderful stuff. There is one Christmas song I can't stand. Feliz Navidad. I cannot. That earworm, even saying it gets an earworm in my head.
It's so repetitive.
God,
right?
I hate it.
Is that the problem? It's repetitive.
It's nothing.
Or is it too happy? It is.
No. It's just over, and it's like, God, I know it says nothing.
Worse than that for me is the Paul McCartney one.
Oh, that one destroyed.
Wonderful Christmas.
Oh, yeah. If I hear it too many times, then it starts to wear on me.
That to me is musically, lyrically, and in every other way, the worst Christmas song.
I got to agree, Charlie Brown Christmas. If nothing else, one song, that it's Christmas time, you hear Linus and Lucy.
You hear Linus and Lucy.
And then he's done another version, and it's even almost better, on the Thanksgiving soundtrack. It's really good. The trio did.
What was it called? The Vince Guaraldi
trio. And they did a big band, or a bigger group of it initially, and then they pared it down back to the trio as the additional tracks. Really good remake of that.
Really good stuff.
But Nat King Cole, anything Nat King Cole Christmas for me.
Yeah. Johnny Mathis.
I guess the classic stuff.
Bing Crosby, Elvis.
Elvis's Christmas album is off the hook.
Like the Blue Christmas with that, like he doo-wopped it up is really remarkable. But I'm with you. Like the Bing Crosby Christmas is the way to go. And the ones I love the most. The ones I love the most are the sad ones, because there's something a little bit like, it's almost like sad about Christmas. It's like I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Or even White Christmas has sort of a sad forlornness to it.
Yeah.
And
because you're far away.
You're far away. And a lot of those I think came on the heels or in World War II.
Correct.
People weren't, they couldn't be home. And it's like, but there's this sort of forlornness about Christmas. And look, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but one of my favorite things to do when I did drink alcohol was like after everybody went to bed, I would sort of pour a drink and just look at the Christmas tree, and listen to these.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, but it wasn't in joy. I wasn't like singing jingle bells and running around. You're just sort of contemplating your life and contemplating what's going on, and maybe putting all that together with what Linus was trying to say is what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and when you think, we had a guest here talking about Jerusalem, and where Nazareth is in relation to Jerusalem. And when you think about the historical context of the historical Jesus and the fact that, like Herod put out the word, kill all the babies.
We'll just kill all the babies because we might have a savior out there. So let's just kill all the babies.
Let's just kill all which is a repeat of the whole Moses thing, right? For generations beforehand. So, yeah, there are some very sad connotations. And I don't just mean the Elmer Fudd version of Blue because I do love that one.
My
it's
God.
Great. I hate the chipmunks. I cannot stand the chipmunks.
Yeah, they're starting to grate on
but
me
the
now,
Elmer
too.
Fudd, come on, man. That's off the hook.
And on social media this year, there is, unless I'm in the right stream, there is such a debate about what is a holiday movie and not.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite? We might as well talk about this because I was going to ask you the best Christmas movie of all time.
One more song. Yeah. I do like Joan Jett's version of The Little Drummer.
Yeah, that's a good version.
Pum-pum-pum-pum.
Yeah, that's
a
good.
rock version.
Yeah. Some people hate Little Drummer. I like Little Drummer Boy because it shows it sort of helps kids understand and redefine that a gift doesn't have to be money.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes,
right.
correct. Exactly. Yeah.
So that brings us to the next question: the best Christmas movie of all time.
I know. You like that Bruce Willis.
Well, Die Hard may be the best Christmas movie of all time.
And that's the debate online.
There's a new one on Netflix with Justin Bateman.
Oh my God!
Or Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
There's a new one. It's sort of the same thing called. It's on Netflix called.
Is it on?
Is that the one with
He's a TSA agent or something like that?
Red?
Yeah.
Is it Red?
Oh, no.
Not Red. Okay.
There's a few of them out there I want to see because I like this. I'm kind of liking the spins of Christmas.
Because The Rock is in this Red movie.
Yeah.
One.
Like Santa Claus is kidnapped or something like that. So, yeah, exactly.
By Satan.
Well, and even to the point of stretching it.
It's called Carry On.
Carry On. Yeah, that was really good.
That's a Christmas?
Is it good?
Christmas related somehow?
It's Christmas like to the extent that Die Hard is Christmas.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Even to the remake of Jumanji with The Rock, speaking of The Rock, it has a Christmas tint to it because when they come back, it's Christmas.
Yeah.
So you could categorize that as a Christmas
There's
movie.
the classics well, another one, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a Christmas movie?
Right.
Yeah, it sort of is.
It kind of is.
But then there's a classic like Miracle on 34th Street. And that's a phenomenal movie.
And colorized or original.
Either way, they're great.
Yeah,
they're
that's
great.
Fabulous.
There's,
is that the one with Shirley Temple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Shirley?
No.
But she was in a Christmas movie with a Father Christmas.
Okay. Yeah,
Shirley
I remember what
Temple.
that was.
She was incredible in that movie. I can't think of the name.
Yeah. But I don't know if I have
Natalie
a favorite.
Wood. It was Natalie
Wood.
Natalie Wood.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. I don't know if I have a favorite Christmas. Not that I like them all. I don't have a go-to necessarily that I've got to watch every year.
You watch any of the Elf? I haven't watched.
Our kids kind of pulled me into Elf. It's okay. I'm kind of hot and cold on Will Ferrell.
Okay,
it depends on the movie. I think he's overplayed. He's good, but
what's a Tom Hanks movie? The Christmas movie where he goes to the department store and they dance.
Big.
Big.
Yeah, Big.
Yeah, I love that scene. Where is it? Robert Lozier, the old mafia actor,
right,
and they're tap dancing on
the big piano keyboard. That. Yeah, exactly.
I love that scene. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now the worst Christmas movie. There's some bad ones. Home Alone's not the worst. We should talk about the Home Alone. I love maybe one of the best Christmas movies.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That is a great movie.
I don't know.
The Jim Carrey Grinch is awful.
No, it doesn't.
Awful, absolutely awful.
Probably anything on Hallmark.
the same Christmas story every single time.
Oh my God.
We're going to go back to the family business that I left to go to the big city.
It's a country song, beer, tear in my beer kind of stuff.
And then
I don't know.
I'm going to fall in love with the high school sweetheart that I let get away.
Aren't there a few divorce Christmas movies like Parent Trap? Kind of theme.
Well, four Christmases or whatever that is. That's freaking hilarious.
Where divorcees get back together or something.
Well, that's not this one, but this is with what is it with Vince Vaughn?
Okay,
phenomenal. It's freaking hilarious.
Okay, I'll have to watch that one.
Well, he is a very talented actor.
Four Christmases, yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. You should watch it. Robert Duvall is in it.
Wedding Crashers. I mean, it's off the hook.
Yeah, he's made some funny stuff.
Yeah, he's made some funny stuff.
Yeah, so there's lots of good Christmas movies, lots of
Yeah.
bad Christmas movies. I agree. You know, as much as my wife loves the Hallmark Christmas movies, sometimes they do Christmas in July on Hallmark, and they play that crap in July. I'm just like, this is nauseating.
It's like cavity driven.
It's like that whole month of shark movies. I can't take that either.
Right.
But it's a viewer winner.
Oh,
people love that
people love
stuff. Oh my God.
Sharknado, a tornado full of sharks.
Exactly.
Well, look, this is our last time to talk to you folks before Christmas. So everybody have a great Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. You know, think about the reason for the holiday, whether you believe in the reason for the holiday or not. Find a reason that matters more than just buying stuff, spending money. Be with your family, be with your kids. And if you're alone, think about being with your family, think about being with your kids, or find somebody to be with, either way. Or check out all our backlog if you're bored at commonsenseohioshow.com. Norm's got a blog, Brett's got a blog. I got an empty blog, maybe one day. And if you're really, really bored, go check out Lawyer Talk Off the Record on the Air, where I break down some of this legal stuff. If you like the legal stuff here, you're really going to like it there, and you get a chance to ask questions. And you can ask questions here, have us cover topics, be a guest, do whatever. So until after Christmas, we are coming at you right from the middle. We'll see you next week.
Peace on earth.